the Ravens situation, what's going on with Ed Reed,
Right.
because he is now, just to give a little backstory for people out there who don't know, he got flagged for another helmet-to-helmet hit this week and was suspended by the league. He's going to miss a game check, apparently, for this. He's appealing, but they're suspending him for, what is it again, that he's had too many of these?
He's not learning the, how do you say it? He's not respecting the rule, pretty much. He's had too many of these happen to him. And they're saying, well, if you're going to keep doing it, we're going to suspend you and cost you a game check now instead of just fining you for the penalty itself.
Now, I want what I really want to get your take on, Brian. Do you think this is a fair penalty? I mean, you've worked in these offices. You know what goes on behind the scenes a lot more than we do here. What do you think's going on? Do you think this is justified?
Well, one of my roles there at the NFL is actually assisting the appeals officers with these types of fines. I work directly with Art Schell, who is presumably going to be the appeal officer on this fine. And I will tell you this: the league office has much discretion in making these decisions. If you're a habitual offender, such as Ed Reed, I believe they cite instances over the past 3 years where he's constantly going after defenseless guys towards the head area, which is something the NFL is taking a strong stance against. Player safety is a paramount concern. I guess the issue is at this point whether a suspension of one game is too harsh of a fine. When you look at some of the prior fines, $21,000, $10,000. Now he's missing a game check, $423,000.
That was my biggest issue. Is I didn't mind necessarily the fact that he was going to get suspended for a game.
Right.
If you want to suspend him, that's one thing. But for him to miss an entire game check, I mean, $420,000+ is a lot of money to anybody.
Well, Brian, let me ask you something. When the league looks at these, do they take in consideration the movement of the receiver? Hence, like when me and Eric were on our ride down to do the show today, we were listening to, I believe it was Mike and Mike, and they had Eric ex-New York Jets coach Eric Mangini on. And one thing he mentioned is that when a wide receiver catches the ball, they will tuck their head down to protect their body. It's a natural motion. It's not like they're not even doing it to draw a penalty. It's just natural to tuck in and protect yourself. So when the NFL looks at these videos and makes the judgment, is that something that they consider? Do they look into that fact of like, well, he wasn't aiming for the head, but the receiver ducked down and it turned into a helmet-on-helmet?
They will consider the totality of the circumstances, as they call it. However, there is no set formula for determining whether a player is fined. They will consider the player's past history. But each particular circumstance, although they will consider the totality of the circumstances, there really is no set formula. It really is on a case-by-case basis, which I think, goes against guys such as Ed Reed, who are habitual offenders. They have less tolerance, if you will, for players that are making contact with the helmet.
Like a James Harrison almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Guys like that are highly critical of the NFL and the league office, because those are typically the kind of guys that are being fined more often and at higher rates.
Okay. Now, so do you believe what they did with Reed is fair?
I believe that the NFL needs to come up with a system that creates sort of an intent, so to speak, that they need to determine whether guys are intentionally, going after other guys. Are they reckless? Are they negligent? For example, in the law, when you look at criminal law, for example, they have a system. If you acted intentionally, did you act recklessly, did you act negligently? I think the NFL needs to come up with a system such as that. I don't believe the faster guys, the harder hitting guys, should be fined. more harshly than guys who are not as talented at the defensive position. I do not think that it's fair overall, though. I think it is harsh. I think that there needs to be sort of a lockstep type system in place where, if a guy's fined $10,000 one year, $20,000, then you take away a game check of $423,000 plus. That's egregious.
Yeah,
I do not think that is fair. I think the problem is, what makes the game great is that these guys are getting faster, they're hitting harder, but
that's the truth.
You're going to sacrifice player safety.
Yeah,
it's the nature of the game, and the NFL, can't have it both ways. If they want to create a better product, that's going to jeopardize player safety. You just can't have it both ways. No, overall, I don't think it's fair.
And I honestly think that's something that that the league needs to realize. It's a player's choice. I mean, any guy out there, I don't care what age you're at, when you play football, you understand what you're getting into. It's not like somebody walks. It's not like you walk into playing football and think somebody's just going to two-hand touch you when you put on a pair of pads. This is, you're not playing backyard football with your friends.
Guys are only, like Brian alluded to, the guys are only getting bigger, stronger, and faster.
But let me, Brian, let me ask you something that's a little more fun and a little away from the legal aspect.
Sure.
Do you think Ronnie Lott even has an NFL career if he played in today's NFL?
No.
I love asking that to people when I get into these topics of conversation, because you can go back and trace some of these Hall of Fame great NFL players that if they had to play under today's rules would never even have been they would have made 2 years in their career and then never made a team again. I think like Mean Joe Green, that man must have teared quarterbacks down in so many different ways. And at this point of the NFL and the way they're going, 15-yard personal foul penalties, he probably would have gotten 3 a game.
Brian, one last question for you. Where do you think the NFL's going? Because the more you see it, when you can't hit guys up high and they're trying to take away the low hit as well, especially on quarterbacks, is there going to come a time where a quarterback's almost like a kicker and you can't really hit him that much? Because, I mean, they do penalize guys, and guys have been fined for going at low on quarterbacks, meaning the knee level. And also now they're getting them for going up high. So, I mean, really, there's only about a 2-foot zone in the middle that you can really hit a quarterback and not get in trouble right now. Do you think that the NFL's leaning towards making it?
And I think, each official will enforce it differently. I could tell you this, there's a lot more fines than there are penalties out there. Because what the NFL league office will do is they'll break down each play after each week, and they'll look to see what the officials missed. And then they will go ahead and they will fine guys.
So there's a lot of fines out there that people don't even know about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know me and you have talked about the coaching aspect as well.
Yeah, I don't think coaches will advise their players to play easy, and I don't think the officials will enforce the rules so stringently. I think it would have too much of an impact on the game. I think if the rules were actually enforced strictly, you'd see a lot more penalties. However, I do believe that the fines will continue at a high rate. I think that the Players Association probably didn't do the best job in addressing those issues in the last collective bargaining agreement.
No, they did not.
The primary concern was money. So if you want to make the primary concern money, then you're going to sacrifice other issues, such as whether players can be fined. Who's going to hear the appeals. I thought that the Players Association would have more efficiently addressed those issues in the last collective bargaining agreement, although they did not. It sort of stayed the same. I was sort of expecting the Players Association to try and create some sort of system, like I explained before, where there's a difference in fines, more structured system for fining players. If they can prove intent, were the players reckless, were they negligent? Negligent meaning, well, maybe if a player does turn quickly, put his head down, an offensive player, that is, then maybe it's simply negligence on behalf of the defending player, not recklessness or intent. But they didn't do that. They kind of left that aspect of the collective bargaining agreement as is, and I think the players are hurting now.
Do you think, though, that in the next collective bargaining agreement, that is something that the Players Association will change, that they will go after harder?
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, if they have strong enough lobbyists down there to help them advocate for those types of issues. But like I said, it was what piece of the pie are the players going to get, what piece of the pie are the teams and the league going to get, and that was the primary issue. I think if you do see harsh fines such as this, with that, if you see this continuing, I think it'll be something. I think eventually it'll come to a head. That issue will have to be a paramount issue that's addressed by the players and the league in the next collective bargaining agreement.
It's interesting to me, Brian, that you brought that up, because one of the things that really bothered me after the whole CBA was approved and they agreed to it was I thought one of the things the players would ask for is a committee or some type of more influence on the suspension of players. Like, for example, Bountygate. I don't think that it's fair that the commissioner of the NFL gets to play judge, jury, and executioner. In my opinion, I always thought that the players were going to fight for something like, a 3 or 5 man committee of, maybe a couple ex-players and a couple, ex-NFL executives or something like that, where, as a board, they made a group decision on what, the suspension would be, if any, because I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing Roger Goodell knows what any of those, using Bountygate as an example, I have a hard time believing Roger Goodell has any idea what any of those players felt when they were in the locker room, when it was being discussed, whether there was a bounty or not a bounty. I don't really care. But Roger Goodell has no idea what those players feel like, what they were thinking, what their mentality or attitude was towards it, because he's never been in the locker room as a player. So I don't think it's fair that a man like him can step in and say, well, you know what? I know what you did. This is the evidence, and now here you're guilty. And I don't like that. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, was that even something that you think they could have brought to the negotiating table, or do you think they were just so focused with the financial aspect that the players' union just sort of threw some of this stuff to the side, including what we were just talking about, as well as something involving the suspensions?
Yeah, I think they were too focused on the financial aspect of the collective bargaining agreement and didn't focus on those ancillary issues. Which surprised me, but that was what was more important at the time. And it's not until you're directly affected by the so-called justice system of the NFL that you start to say, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. But like I said, you have to give up certain things in any negotiation. Both sides are going to walk away going, well, it could have been better, could have been worse.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the key to a good negotiation? Neither party walks away happy.
That's right.
I'll never forget. I took business negotiation in college, and that was the number one lesson my teacher wanted us to know. Yeah. He's like, no negotiation went well unless both parties walk away unhappy. And we're like,
unless they both feel like they got screwed.
Yeah, like how does that make sense? But that really is the bottom line when people look at negotiating. You can't have one party be happier than the other. They need to literally just walk away and both be miserable.
Sure. It's a give and take. And I'll tell you this, it's the employment arbitration system is pretty much the same thing. It's the same deal where all employment disputes actually between NFL team employees and their respective club are automatically and mandatorily arbitrated by the league.
Oh, wow.
Which raises another interesting issue. Any employment dispute, has to be handled by league-mandated arbitration. So they do have their own justice system there. That's for sure. In all regards. So it's interesting.
Now they just need to work on their own set of checks and balances, and maybe they'll be all right.
Right. They're in their own world. Well, they are the NFL, so they can do what they please, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, hey, like they say about anything with big money, they pretty much create the world around them. They don't deal with the reality handed to them. They make their own.